Nobody comes to work at the dam today. Not tomorrow. Ever. And the wall is holding fine. That's the problem. In the United States alone, 16,745 dams are rated high hazard. Failure kills. High hazard means exactly that. If the dam goes, the people downstream are expected to die. So which one fails first? Here's the part that surprises people. It isn't the famous one. Let's start the clock. One more thing. What kills a dam isn't the water. It's mud. And on some dams, that same mud is what saves the valley below. Stay for the year those two curves cross. Year 0, Day 1. You're standing on the walkway above Hoover Dam in the United States. Everything hums. 17 generators are still spinning under your feet, making power for nobody. Their fuel is water, and the lake behind them is full. One video mapping this out put it plainly. A hydro plant may be the last artificial light left on Earth. It doesn't need a single person. It needs something much smaller than a person to stop it. Year 1. The first thing to beat the dam is alive, and it's the size of your thumbnail. Quagga mussels. They're an invasive shellfish already living in that lake. They colonize the small cooling pipes inside the machines. A pipe blocks. A heat alarm trips. One generator shuts itself down. Then the next. Inside about a year, all 17 are dark. Now nothing passes through the dam. The river below runs dry. And the lake starts to climb. Climbing water needs a way out. There is one. Almost nobody ever looks at it. That's the shape of every tick from here. Something small changes, and the water level answers. If you like watching the hidden systems that keep civilization running, and what happens when they fail, subscribe. Every video, one clock. Back to the lake. Year 2. You walk to the edge of the concrete and look at a wide open channel cut into the side. That's the spillway. It's the passage that carries surplus water away when the lake is full. Forget the wall. This is the part that decides everything. When a spillway can't pass enough water, the lake goes over the top of the dam instead, and the flow scrapes the structure apart. That's how dams actually die. So which dams lose their spillway first? Not the ones you've heard of. Year 5. Pulled back from Hoover. On the map, thousands of dots. Remember those 16,745 high-hazard dams. Roughly 2,522 of them, about 15%, were already rated poor or unsatisfactory while humans were still inspecting them. The average American dam was already about 64 years old on day 1. This clock doesn't start new. It starts middle-aged. Middle-aged, and not all built of the same thing. Year 10. There's a death order, and it's set by what the dam is made of. A big concrete gravity dam like Hoover was built with huge safety margins. It can stand a century or more. An older earthen dam is a shaped bank of soil and rock. It only survives because somebody keeps its spillway clear and its drains open. Nobody does. So the earth dams go first, in a rising wave through the first 20 to 50 years. That's your answer. The first to fall are the small, plain, unnamed ones. Hoover is barely getting started. And one of those plain ones is about to show you exactly how it happens. Year 10. Somewhere with a winter. You're on a hillside above a smaller dam. Silt and floating debris have packed in around the floodgates. A storm arrives. Water pours in faster than the choked gates can let it out. The lake rises past the crest and pours over the top. It cuts into the ground at each end of the dam. The dam doesn't crack. It gets undermined and pulled down. 30 kilometers downstream, the valley floods. Which sounds like the worst thing on this clock. It isn't. Stop the clock. Because here's the part that makes this different from every doomed timeline. Mud is filling every lake behind every dam. Less mud room means less water room, and less water means a smaller flood if the wall ever lets go. So a silted-up dam can be a safer dam, which means the worst release doesn't wait for year 100. On many of these, it already happened, early, while the lake was still deep. Two curves running opposite ways. Restart the clock and watch them cross. Year 20, the lakes are shrinking, and they started shrinking long before we left. The world's large reservoirs had already lost roughly 13 to 19% of their original storage to trapped mud. That loss compounds at about 1/3% of capacity every year. Projections put it at 23 to 28% gone by 2050. Those numbers assumed people were still dredging. Nobody is. And that's the polite version of the number. Year 30. A newer global count, one that includes the small reservoirs, finds average stored water falling about 7.3% every decade. About 1 in 5 reservoirs is already in a high-risk band. Small dams die first, and they die fastest. And it isn't always slow. 7 large dams on one Japanese river system lost between 37 and 67% of their storage. That took 37 to 64 years. Crews were still working the whole time. Nobody is working now. So watch what the mud does to the wall itself. Year 40. Stand on the crest and look down at the lake. The mud floor is rising toward you. Every meter of silt pushes the water surface higher up the wall and closer to the top. The spillway that was designed for a deep, roomy lake is now guarding a shallow bowl that fills in hours. Quick one for you. Is there a dam upstream of where you live? Tell me the name in the comments and like this so the next person sees it. I read them. Meanwhile, Hoover hasn't moved at all. Because the wall has its own problem, and it has nothing to do with water. Year 50. Now the concrete. It is not inert stone on this clock. Some dams carry a slow chemical fault called alkali-silica reaction. Silica in the stone aggregate reacts with the cement and forms a gel. The gel swells as it takes on water. The dam cracks itself from the inside, usually noticeable after 25 years or more. Then frost gets into those cracks, freezes, and widens them. One dam in New Brunswick, Canada was hit hard enough by it to matter while engineers were watching and able to act. That was the whole difference. Year 60. Back at Hoover, one number tells you how unnatural this wall is. Engineers worked out what would happen if the dam were poured as one solid block. It would have needed about 125 years just to cool to the temperature of the air around it, and it would have torn itself apart doing it. So they built it in separate columns instead. Then they ran about 1,000 kilometers of chilled water pipe through the concrete to pull the heat out. That is the level of care this thing was born with. Nobody is checking it now. And outside, something much gentler is taking over. Year 70. Walk the earth dams now. They're green. Wildflowers on the slope. Birds in the trees. For a while, it honestly looks like the planet is healing. It isn't. It's demolition. Roots push seepage paths straight through the fill. A tree dies, its roots rot, and it leaves a void behind. Water finds the void. That's called piping. Water eats a tunnel through the dam from the inside, and something is about to widen that tunnel on purpose. Year 80. The animals finish it. Burrowing wildlife dig dens into the embankment. Beaver, muskrat, nutria, gopher, badger, coyote, crayfish, ants. Dam owners were warned about every one of them. A burrow from the wet side meets a burrow from the dry side. Now there's a channel. Every one of those animals does better with us gone. By now, the lakes barely look like lakes at all. Year 95. Stand where the lake used to be deep. It's a mudflat now, then a meadow, with a thin river wandering across the top of 100 years of trapped silt. The water's still there as a shallow sheet against the wall. It looks harmless. That is exactly when the last dams fail, not when the lake is biggest, but when the spillway is smallest. Year 100. The end doesn't take a decade, it takes an afternoon. We know, because it happened with people watching. At Teton Dam in Idaho, 1976, about 5 hours passed between the first muddy trickle on the downstream face and the breach. 5 hours. Then the gap opened, and roughly 213 million cubic meters of water went through it in 2 hours and 23 minutes. Peak flow was around 65,000 cubic meters every second. 100 years of quiet, 2 hours of river. Now the part nobody films. All that stored mud goes downstream, and we know what happens next because we've done it on purpose. On the Elwha River in the United States, 2 dams were removed. About 2/3 of the 21 million cubic meters of trapped sediment moved back into the river. Around 75% of it reached the sea within 3 years. The beach came back, the estuary came back, the salmon runs came back. The flood is the delivery. Back to reality. How much of this is real? Every mechanism here is measured, not imagined. Mud filling reservoirs worldwide. Spillways as the true weak point. Roots and burrows opening earth banks. Chemistry cracking concrete from the inside. Mussels blocking a cooling pipe. The only invented part is the empty control room. With people here, this whole clock is just a maintenance schedule. Dredging, inspections, clearing trees off an embankment. Boring work that quietly buys a century. So here's my question for you. You get 1 crew and 100 years. Do you save the big concrete dam or the small earth one nearest to people? Answer in the comments in 5 words. Next time we stay in the water and start a much shorter clock, a river changes course. The city is still standing on the old bank.